It's Rachel. This year, 2025, I am weighing and recording everything that I harvest out of the garden behind me, and then I convert that weight into total servings. I'm using standard nutritional data for each crop to then convert those servings into the total energy coming out of the system, whether by carbohydrates, protein, or fat, as well as the vitamins and minerals. I compare that to the daily recommended amount for calories as well as vitamins and minerals, and convert all of that data into how many days supply or days worth of these things I am getting in total out of my garden. At the end of the year, I will see how close we came to nutritional sufficiency, meaning 365 days worth of supply. In the interim, every month I'm giving an update on how we are progressing towards this goal. It is now July and I'm really starting to get a yield out of here, although nothing compared to what it'll look like come main harvest in August and September. As a reminder, I am cultivating 35 different types of food, including 5 types of berries. 6 of those, my apples, peaches, blueberries, asparagus, pears, and hazelnuts, won't be producing harvest this year, and as such, 2025 isn't exactly a representative year, but it's a good start. 6 other crops are finished for now. My spring arugula, mustard greens, spinach, broccoli, radishes, and peas are all done and removed, and I'll plant another round of those soon for a fall crop. Quick note on my berries, I did plant 5 different varieties, but only 4 of them are actively yielding in 2025. The honeyberries had a small harvest. This was only my first year with 2 plants for cross-pollination, and they're still getting established. The strawberries are also still getting established, and I had a small but decent crop. I'm now rooting their runners into pots to get more plants for next year for use in a possible gutter garden to better avoid slug damage. My raspberry plant is also still getting established, and last year it only set about 4 to 5 primocanes, which are now my floricanes bearing fruit. All of the raspberries from those floricanes have now finished up, but the plant is establishing itself really well now, and it threw up something like 30 primocanes this year, so next year's harvest will be much larger. I do grow an ever-bearing type, and it will bear a later crop on those primocanes in a few weeks, but the real deluge of raspberries isn't going to happen until 2026. The blackberries, in contrast, were well established already last year with a ton of floricanes that came up, and they're now starting to pour in, as well as producing more primocanes for next year's harvest. I'll do a deeper dive on cane fruits and different kinds of canes and how to prune them in my next video, because a few people have asked me questions about that. I'm actively harvesting 7 things right now: kale, chard, lettuces, blackberries, beets, carrots, and some new potatoes. If you compare the servings per week from my last update in June to the servings per week now, you can see that what used to be a large peak now looks pretty small relative to what's been coming in lately. In June, I had a total of only 70 servings, mostly leafy greens, versus now we're at almost 600 servings, and the categories of crops that are giving me those servings are really starting to balance out. Leafy greens are still the biggest category, driven by beet greens. I am going to briefly start mentioning in these monthly updates how I preserve these crops, because as you can see, they tend to come in these large waves, far more than you could eat at any given time, and they do need to be preserved for later. For beet greens, I blanch them briefly in boiling water before cooling them in an ice bath. I then drain them and spread them to dry thoroughly before forming them into little bundles of individual servings and putting them in the freezer. I then transfer those to freezer bags for long-term storage. I'll pull these out when we get to the coldest part of the winter and nothing is growing in the garden. They work well in soups or in baked dinners, and I can take them out, saute them with a little bit of olive oil and garlic, and have a nice side dish. My root crops are led by beets and then carrots. I pickle the beets to keep their color, as well as some of the carrots. I also pressure can the carrots to make a ready-to-go soup for the winter that just needs to be pureed in a blender. I saved a few carrot greens as well, and I made them into a pesto. The last category in the root crops is a combination of potatoes and radishes. I am not yet harvesting my main potato bed, but I used a few grow bags to plant some extra seed potatoes this spring, and I am starting to harvest those now as early potatoes. I don't bother to preserve those early small potatoes. We just eat them fresh, either as a smashed potato or roasted and tossed with some of that carrot top pesto. I also had a nice yield of broccoli in the spring. I cut those heads into spears, and then, similar to the beet greens, I quickly blanch and individually freeze them and then package them up into freezer bags. My berries round out the bulk of the remainder with about 22 servings of raspberries and 8 servings of strawberries so far this year. If you flip from looking at servings to looking at total calories, the picture is very different. Now my root crops are the main contributors, followed by my broccoli. While I had 7 to 8 times as many servings of salad greens as I did of berries, the berries contribute an almost equal amount of calories as the greens did. Overall, how are we tracking? I am getting a lot more yield out of this system, and while we're doing really well on vitamins and minerals, we are still light on energy sources. Last month, if you saw that video, I was running at around 1 day's supply of energy and around 3 days worth of vitamins and minerals. Changing to this month's view, I'm running at around 10 days worth of energy, weighted towards protein and carbs, as I'm still not getting much fat. Vitamins and minerals are tracking at around 20 to 30 days worth, with the exception of vitamins A and C that are both off the charts high. So I'm tracking to a roughly similar 2 or 3 to 1 ratio as far as vitamins and minerals versus energy. When the eggs start coming in, hopefully this balance of energy versus vitamins and minerals will balance out a bit. And the energy yield should increase significantly when we get into the fall and I harvest all of my big root crops like the potatoes and the sweet potatoes, as well as my dried beans. Until then, I will continue giving these monthly updates and show you guys how we are making progress. If you would like even more granular data, you can head over to www.wellgroundedgardens.com and click on the backyard diet in the top menu. That lets you see all of the gory detail as far as daily harvests, grams, servings, and full nutritional details. As always, I hope that was helpful, and if you do have any questions, please leave them below and I will do my best to respond. Until next time, thanks.